is still going to be another, maybe not as jam-packed as yesterday. I know we put a lot in yesterday's agenda, but today we're going to move around a lot more, we've got some team building. We're going to learn a little bit about ourselves and our leadership. And then we've got dinner tonight at Taverna, and then after that, the dueling piano bar. So hope you get your rock star nap this afternoon when we have our break. Because we do have a good, nice break this afternoon. So grab a nap instead of a cocktail. Alright, so I have a couple of housekeeping pieces for today. Have you gotten your questions in for town hall? If you have, thank you, grab another piece of candy. If you have not, please see Robert by lunch. We really, really, really want your questions. We want to know the burning questions. This is anonymous, so pass them directly to Robert. He does not know who's giving him what. He's just putting it in his pocket. He's not looking at it, and then he mixes it up before he reads it. So it truly is anonymous, and your questions are really important for us so that we get a flavor for what's going on or what we need to do or what we need to be aware of. Because again, we all know our guest relations philosophy, if we don't know that there's a problem, we cannot fix it. Or if we are doing something really well, we need to know that too. So I don't want to focus on the negative, we want the positive as well. If we're doing something great and we need more of it, like this is working really well, why can't we do it over here too? We need to know that stuff. So you do have the option to stand up and ask questions at the town hall for follow-up. Who's going to be the brave one to be the first to ask the question live and in person? So, okay. We're going to start the day off with 2 raffles today. Everybody got, for the GMs, do you have your blue tickets? Do you have brand new fresh tickets? All right. Tanya will not be drawing the number today. Kelly, nice, nice. Kelly, where's our bowl of tickets? Who's got the ticket stubs? Just tell me. Okay, I hear her. Allison and Ivy, we got spaces up here if you want to join tables.
Sorry, I had to go pull one off the wall to use the bowl.
Kelly is, oh, that's a good question. Who won money yesterday in your lottery? Who won money? No, so I'm guessing no one won $50,000 because it did not come running up to us saying, where's my ride to the airport?
I just say my gift.
Oh, that is a good point. Good point. No one's asking for a loan. All right, so 2 raffles today. We're going to start with thank you. Right. So we're raffling off a Bush Light guitar. All right. Ooh, all right. 387-2972.
2972. That's me.
Who's
Somebody else. I want it, but thank you.
She is throwing it back in the raffle.
My pleasure.
Let's do this again. We have 387-3024.
3024.
Oh!
Wait, Hugo, you gotta give it up too.
No.
We're so kind and generous. We are.
All right, here we go. Third time's a charm. 3021.
3021.
If it's another DM, we're putting the bowl back.
3021. Are they in the pie? Where'd they go? In the pie? You work in daycare? Going one?
Yes. Our teacher here. 3021.
It's me! Okay. Snooze you lose, dude. Whoever you are.
2977.
2977.
Alright, we're going to do one more. And I'm going to let the winner choose. Because we have 2 more prizes. There'll be one later this afternoon. Okay. 3020.
3020.
Alright. Tailgating kit, complete with confetti, or a Burns Carolina Hurricane signed jersey. Who wants the cooler? So it's got a little for themselves. Yes, so keep your ticket, and we'll have one more at the end. I have one more piece for you, and then we're gonna watch a video, and then we're gonna have Amber come and introduce Dr. Kevin Hayes. For our GMs in the room, we have one more moment of appreciation for you, to help you appreciate your teams who have been able to keep it together and keep everything, the lights on, while you've been here. Friday is Employee Appreciation Day. So before you leave today, Kelly has some boxes for you to go and put an immediate employee appreciation spread on for your teams on Friday. So we have 2 dozen donuts being delivered to your restaurants, and she has a kit that has some signage and some candy and some things like, Kelly, it says, we don't know, donut.
Not what we do without you.
So you have some signs, but you have an immediate plug-and-play employee appreciation kit for you. So before you leave, and this is Sullivan and LM, we've got the kit for you as you walk out of here on before you go to dinner. So it's easy for you to pack. And actually, are we shipping Florida, those who flew? Or it's small enough?
Yeah, well, the candy's really for them, so all they really are taking home is just those signage, it's just pieces of paper.
Perfect. So it's for everybody, but it's a plug and play to help you spread the love to your teammates on Employee Appreciation Day on Friday. All right. Kevin, will you go forward on the slide? I don't have a clicker. It may say raffle, and then we'll go to the next one.
All right, Lou, we all know that the restaurant industry comes with a lot of challenges. What keeps you going? How do you get through it at the end of the day so that, we're still successful?
Well, first of all, I love what I do. I get up in the morning and I want to go to work. I love people. I love the excitement. I love to make people happy. I want to see people smile. And it is a difficult business we're in, no doubts about it. But not impossible. So you set your mind, you say, okay, if you had a difficult day, for example, you're going to say, I'm going to make that guy smile before he leaves. And that's an accomplishment for you. Okay? You're going to really go out of your way to make that guy who's miserable for whatever reason. He might have a bad day, whatever. You're going to go out of your way and make him happy. How you feel? You feel you really accomplished something. You can't stop because you didn't have a good day. Every day is not the same. There's different days. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it shines, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's, cold like today. Every day is different, and that's what makes this business good. You never get bored. There is not a dull moment in our business. Sometimes we have to make a decisions, instant decisions. You can't put that in a book. You have to stop and think and say, okay, what's the best thing I need to do to make this customer happy? Or make, the employee happy? Or, provide something that will make everybody happy, which is the key. And sometimes, we cannot do it, but there is always a way. If there is a will, there is a way. One time I remember at Amber's in Florida, I had a customer that was very unhappy because the hostess did not treat him right. I ran outside, I grabbed the customer, brought him back, buy him dinner and a bottle of wine. It turned out to be the national sales manager of a large company and brought a lot of business. So I gained the customer. Okay? It cost us money, but in the long run was cheap advertising. So there is always a will to really figure out how you can make that customer that is not happy, win them over and make him happy. Well, there is a will, there is a way.
There's a will, and you can find a way, right? Good morning. Thank you again to Verde for hosting us last night. So we're going to kick this morning off with Dr. Kevin Mays. I'm going to read his formal intro. He's obsessed with helping leaders think differently, lead intentionally, and create high-performance teams. It's his experience that without deep levels of awareness and presence, engagement will suffer on your teams. He knows that the path to conscious leadership is often uncomfortable, but it leads to new opportunities, growth, and of course, success. Through a series of extreme life experiences, Kevin learned firsthand that the fact before you can lead anyone else, you must lead yourself first. And change comes from the inside out. Helping others realize how to do this has become Kevin's life work. He's an author, a consultant, a coach, and a speaker, and of course, a recovering psychologist. Kevin currently lives in his home in Michigan, where he works with companies around the country, guiding and leading them to being industry leaders. But that's his formal intro. I'd love to share with you kind of the true life story of how Kevin became affiliated with LM Restaurants. Back in 2014, I won an opportunity to go and spend a week at a leadership conference. And when I got the award, I was like, okay, this is great, I'm gonna go spend the week. It was transformative. It's a leadership institute out in Greensboro, and what's really neat about it, BB&T, one of the nation's largest, most successful banks, puts all their leaders through it. You can actually not go past the level 19 and up into upper management without successfully going through the course. They believe that, as Kevin is teaching, leadership comes from the inside out and to be your most successful self. So went through the program, it was kind of transformative, came back to the leadership team in 2015, and I was like, we're all going through it. And I'll never forget, I got a phone call from Tanya in April by the time we started to go through it. And she goes, Friday afternoon, she goes, I hate you. I hated you at the beginning. Like literally, I just had a moment, you were like, no, you did. You were like, at the beginning of the week, I hated you. And by the end of the week, I was like, oh, magical. And Tanya Toller has been through it as well. And she's like, okay, I want more. And so we're very, very privileged to be working with Kevin in the kickoff of Conscious Leadership and continuing to roll it out to the leaders in the organization. So welcome, Dr. Kevin. We're very excited.
Thank you, and good morning. Good morning. Everybody, let's just stand up really quick. Can we just move the energy a little bit? Everybody stand up. Maybe you had a late night. Just reach up, stretch, lift your body up because your body is the vehicle of your leadership. Touch the ceiling, stretch to the ceiling, to the right, a little bit to the left. Stretch back a little bit, all the way down, touch the floor. All right, have a seat. Have a seat. In the next hour, we're going to talk about something that I believe really fuses with what you talked about yesterday. And that is this, right? Yesterday you talked about the power of coming together, being a singular voice of the band. Today is really about tuning your instrument. Because it's great if you get together and you get your guitar that you just won the Busch Light, and you play in the street corner with a bunch of musicians, but if everybody's out of tune, you're not making music. Conscious leadership is about using your tools, your God-given tools, intentionally, purposefully, consciously. So think about this. In the first 3 years of your life, your brain forms 1,000 trillion neuroconnections. 1,000 trillion. Mind-boggling number. 1,000 trillion neuroconnections. What does that mean? When you came into the world, you were a blank slate. And immediately, you started, based on your experiences, forming these beliefs and perceptions and morals and values. All of this stuff out of the gate, 1,000 trillion neural connections in your brain the first 3 years. Guess what? Now those neural connections, well, they still exist. And they persist. And they drive what you do in ways that you don't even know, in ways that keep you out of tune from truly achieving your potential. This is the true fact. This is the true fact. Conscious leadership, and our work today is I'm going to invite you to tip your idea of leadership on its head. The beliefs that create the cognitive framework that you look at the world through. They're the beliefs that are so ingrained, it is the lens that you're looking at the world through, and it's biased. And it's out of tune, and you don't even know it. Let me ask you a question. Who among you has a leadership style? Show of hands if you have a leadership style. Few of you, now come on, we all can identify. Let me jump over here and pick on you. What's your leadership style?
It's more of a working through my people than a quick story.
Quick story. All right.
So I was with an organization, I was in Asia, and my bosses told me, Mark, you need to stop working so hard and work smart. And then over time, I just figured it out. Work smart.
Working smart for your people, not working hard, working smart. Do you ever find yourself falling into the trap of working hard?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. I love it. Where does that come from? How'd you learn to be the hard worker? Huh. Who else had a leadership style over here? Tell us, what's your leadership style?
Well, of course, everybody has different leadership styles, but and I've read many books trying to figure out that perfect leadership style. Lead by example, or mentor, and I think a lot of it is leading by example. Being that guy, just like Walt Disney would walk around the park and pick up a piece of paper, I'm that guy too. But
So leading by example. When doesn't that work for you?
when it doesn't work for me, when I'm leading by example and I get stuck in that rut where I feel like I'm doing the hourly position and I'm taking that job away from somebody else that's supposed to be doing it.
Suddenly your sleeves are rolled up and you're down into the world of operating and not casting the vision as a leader. Of
You
your
lose focus
story.
on what's going on already.
Absolutely, absolutely. One more. Who else? Who in this round table can just yell out, what's your leadership style?
I mean, I think to an extent, it's like Shannon was saying, you lead by example, but it's more so understanding what makes each employee tick, what works for them, to what type of leadership works for them. Because I think we have to vary based off person to person. It's not going to be the same for everybody.
When does that not work that well for you? Is there a time when that approach doesn't work that well for you?
Maybe if somebody feels like you treat somebody differently. That seems to.
Right. And here's the thing, guys. Leadership style is a ruse. Leadership style is a myth. There is no leadership style. I fooled you. What there is your personality playing itself out at work. For 99.999% of the people that I've ever experienced on planet Earth, what happens? We get cast into the world, and immediately we start having experiences based on our family, based on our culture, based on our environment, and those experiences get cemented into the neural fabric of our brain's thinking mechanism. And that starts to perpetuate a certain way of moving through the world. Now, we take that same set of patterns and cast it into our adult lives as leaders, and we say, oh, this is my leadership style. But when you really trace the thread all the way back, you start to recognize, oh, maybe this is less of my leadership style and more of my personality playing itself out at work. This is what I'm going to challenge you all to look at as we move this discussion forward, is what is my personality? How does my personality play out at work? And the thing is, what we will do as humans is create an airtight logic that says my way of thinking is correct. My way of thinking is correct, even if it's not. It is not your perception of it. And it's a long path, right? It's not someplace you just suddenly arrive at. It's a pathway. And every day you take another step to become more self-aware, more present, more conscious, more intentional. And I'll say this, sometimes, often, when you are consciously leading, it will require you to do things that are absolutely uncomfortable. Leadership is not about being comfortable. It's about stepping out of your comfort zone. But the logic in our head and the attachments to the beliefs that we have will have a logic that says, this is the thing I should do. But the reality is, as humans, we're hedonistic. We will drive towards that comfortable thing. We'll do the same thing that we've done before. We'll have airtight logic that says this is what we should do. It might not get us the result. This is the goal. What's the result you're after? Have you ever used your leadership style, known you were doing it right, and ultimately over time it's not getting the result you want? And then in your head, what do you think? It's about the individual. It's about the system. It's about the process. It's about the customer. It's about the government. It's everything else. Leadership style. So I'm suggesting, and I'm challenging you to think about your leadership style differently. Your leadership style is your personality playing itself out at work. So if we're going to do this deep dive and talk about personality, then it's essential that we start with a definition. What is personality? What comes to mind when I say that? Back table. What is personality? First off, shout it out.
Engagement.
Engagement. Your personality is engagement. Okay. How do you define? Now, this is the question, not yours. What is personality? What's personality? What's that mean?
It's who you are. Persona.
Persona. It's who you are. What's personality? How you behave.
Character traits.
Your character traits. Your mannerisms. What's personality? The way you relate to the world. Absolutely. All of it's right. What's personality in the back here? How you connect with others. What's personality? First thing that comes to mind. No wrong answer. Well, there's the wrong answer. Don't say the wrong one.
Traits.
Your traits. Okay. Yeah. What would you add? Personality. Your attitude. Absolutely. I love it. Your attitudes, your traits, your behaviors, the way you relate to others. Then you have your personality. Others perceive that as well. This is your instrument, folks. How do you tune it to make sure it's continually playing the song you want it to play? I worked just yesterday with some leaders, and I love it. We did this 360 instrument. Now they're getting feedback about their personality. And I asked them what the personality is. They give me all these glowing traits on how they're so people-centric and they're there to help people. And then they get the 360. And there's a little distance, a little pain. The world might see us differently than we see ourselves. Usually it does. The question is, right, that our ego gets involved and we want to defend ourselves. That's what happened yesterday. They were defending themselves, explaining away. This is the reality. Others perceive our personality differently than we perceive us. It's so important to understand that. And then from that position, you can start to be more intentional in how you engage with people around you so you're getting the result you need. I'm going to suggest for our discussion today that personality has three key components. Three key components. Personality. What do you think? It's on your table. You see 3 circles. Beautiful. Who's going to take a guess? What's personality? How do we fill in these circles? Your experiences. Now I love that. Here's the thing to pay attention to. Well, let me ask this. What do you experience with? What part of your personality has the experience? It's a strange question.
I mean, it's everything. It's your life experiences. It's your how you react based on all the knowledge accumulated up until that point. It's the ability to look at something and be able to make a decision based on what you know and what you have been through, to be able to react, hopefully, properly.
So, boiled down to one word, your personality is what? Of those 3 bubbles, what's the word? You ran over it. It's good. Go ahead. Emotion. Oh, she comes right out with emotion. Part of who we are is how we feel. Huge part of our decision-making process. Who among you makes emotionally driven decisions? Everybody, I saw your hand went up immediately. I'm like, oh, one person is correct. Everybody else is kidding themselves. And this is based on neuro research, right? The neuroscience shows that when we make a decision without exception, the limbic centers of your head fire. That is, they're the emotional centers. That's the limbic centers. They get engaged. When you make a decision, emotion is involved. The question is it a low level of managed emotion? Or are you overwhelmed with emotion and the emotions dictating your behavior? Real interesting line to understand the difference. So we'll dig into a little more. But first of all, I love it. We have what you feel, your emotion. Part of your personality that comes off is how you feel. Okay, what else? There's still 2 circles left. What else is personality? Say that? Where does rational thought exist within you? In the brain? What's the difference between your brain and your mind? What would you say? How do you answer it? And you've thought of it before. I like it. Okay.
What is it? I would say that the mind is not the physical.
So then, that being said, where does rational thought happen? Is it in the brain or in the mind? I'm going to go, so the brain, think of it this way, the brain is the 3-pound lump of gray matter in between your ears. It's an organ, but it doesn't have, your free will does not rest there. Your ability for rational thought, it does not rest in your brain, but in your mind. Think of a computer. You have the hardware, you have the software. You come into the world, the brain is the hardware. You come into the world, you have hardware. You have a brain, but guess what? You haven't programmed your brain yet. How do you program? How do you create the programs? That is your mind. How do you create those as a human being? Experiences. And what happens? So how do experiences form the programming of your mind?
You're going through emotions, you're learning as you experience.
So this is the great thing. You have experiences, but hold on now. If my experiences are forming the beliefs or the programming in my mind, how is it that 2 people growing up in the same environment will have vastly different experiences? Anybody have this experience where somebody in their family came from a very dysfunctional family and somebody else came from a very functional family and it's all the same family? How does that make sense? Is it your experiences?
No, I think you're born with something, you're predisposed to something, right? I think you come out of the womb with it, right?
It's how you perceive. It's how what you make up. It's the story you begin to tell, the narrative you weave. And guess what, folks? When you're building those beliefs, remember this number, 1,000 trillion neural connections. 1,000 trillion. How big is that number? Can't even conceive of it, right? It's ridiculous. 1,000 trillion neural connections in 3 years. Guess what? The beliefs that are in your mind are now getting formalized into your brain's neural network. And these become the marching orders that are driving the decisions that you make today. Conscious leadership. You're tuned, right now, your instrument, the vehicle of your leadership, is tuned for experiences that you had decades ago. And we'll default to doing that same, behaving the same way, thinking the same way, the same thought process will play itself out. In fact, those neural connections that happen over time get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger until it's not just neural connections, but I think of them as the brain's superhighways. And so we'll default to a certain way of thinking. And in reality, that there's patterns in our mind that drive our thinking. We think with our mind. We have the capacity for rational thought. However, the capacity for rational thought will be biased in ways we don't even see based on all the experiences we've had that are now cemented into our brain's neural fabric. We have a framework. You have a framework. The work of a conscious leader is to be able to take that framework off and start to look at it. To really start, and this is the hard thing. This is why it's painful, because a lot of that framework entails or involves the beliefs you have about yourself, your own concept, and what it means for you to have value in the world. All goes back to your thinking. You formed your software. Here's the neat thing. You formed your software. 3 years, 1,000 trillion neural connections, first 3 years old. That same software is playing itself out. Folks, you're operating on DOS. It's time for an upgrade, right? If you want to be the one who's really playing your instrument in the band of this organization, if you want to lead your story, what got you here is not what's going to get you there. It's about changing. It's about being able to understand what your bias is. Being able to understand the patterns of thinking, where you got them, how you got them, uprooting the ones that aren't getting you what you want, so you can get more of what that thing is. Now, we have our personality, what we think, what we feel, and how we act. What we do. That's simple. What's the vehicle of that? Application. What's that? Our drives. What we do, it's our behavior. What do we behave with? Our body. It's that simple. That's why I had to stand up, right? Recognize this is the house of everything. Without the body, there is nothing. And within your body exists this thing called the brain, and the brain is the hardware upon which we operate this software. Software called our mind, our self-concept, our ego identity, the narratives we've created in our life. And here's the beautiful thing. Again, your narrative is really good at helping you be right. Anybody good at being right? How'd you learn to be right? Okay, let me ask this question. Often, let me make a statement first. Often, based on the environment, when we come into the world, we start to create these drives in our brain that are deeply ingrained. And there's some things we're able to see now based on the environment you grew up in. For example, who are the oldest children in your family in the room? You grew up, you're the oldest child. What is, Amber, tell us one quality of the oldest child that the others won't resonate.
Be responsible.
Any responsible oldest children here? Well, now others, it doesn't say others won't be responsible, not at all, but just recognize, let me ask this. So, show of hands again, oldest child. How did you learn to be responsible?
Taking care of little siblings.
What was at stake if you weren't responsible?
Both got in trouble. Yeah.
Recognize it's beyond getting in trouble. Because right as a child, we don't have the executive function of the brain. We don't have that prefrontal cortex. We are operating out of that more emotional space. In the mind of a 4-year-old, if they don't take care, or a 5 or 6 or 10-year-old, if you don't take care of that child, what's at stake? You're nodding. What's at stake? What's at stake? Yeah. Well, bigger than that. If you're not taking care of the child, what's going to happen to the child? Recognize when you're forming these neural connections, your survival is at stake. You are learning to get some vital needs met when you came into the world. That's the key role of an infant, right? To do the thing that gets the needs met. And how do you get the needs met? Well, for the oldest child, it's often really early on, you learn to be responsible and recognize that in the perception of the oldest, survival is at stake. What is it that little fresh humans need to survive? Nourishment. What else? Love. Nourishment?
Well, it could go.
Yeah, well, I love it. I think I usually will hear things like nourishment, shelter. Beautiful. You put a baby in a house with a can of tuna fish. Good to go. Got it. No, but it's bigger. It's like, really, I think of it's like attention needs. We need attention. And as a child, we learn to do the thing that gets the attention needs met. And in doing so, we're forming these patterns in our mind, in our thinking, that will carry us for the rest of our lives. If you're not paying attention, I can guarantee with 100% certainty, you will make the same decisions that you've always made. You will continue on the same path because your mind has a logic that says this is the right way. I've survived, I'm here, this is right. Anybody ever get into a little conflict with someone they love and you're holding your ground being right? Oh my God, it happened. It happened to me when I was leaving to come here. My wife, I'm like, we started getting this edge and I'm like, she doesn't, if she would just get it, if she would listen to me, she would get it and see how brilliant I am. And then I leave, I'm like, oh, I'm such a fool. Right? We become attached to our ideas. We become, because we know they're right, we become attached to our thinking. Now, here's the other thing, the nugget that's really important to keep in mind. Your thinking, based on your ideas, when you see things that support your self-concept, it's going to generate an emotion. What's the emotion you experience when you see things that validate yourself and your self-concept? How's it feel?
Oh, proud.
You get a swing in your step, you get that swagger going on, you feel good, right? The world is your domain. But emotion is so conditional in this way. Because we feel good when we perceive things that support our story, then we feel good, and our energy, our cup is filled up. Very conditional. What happens when we perceive things that distinctly challenge our self-concept, our values, our worldview, our beliefs? What's the emotion you experience then?
Doubt.
Doubt? What else?
Anger.
Humility, anger,
Frustration.
frustration. Anybody ever experience guilt? Fear? All this stuff is made up. It's the narrative in the mind. It's not the reality of what's out there. We're just playing out the old software. Our instrument is out of tune. To tune it up is to be able to have, as Amber stated at the beginning, that deep level of self-awareness to actually see and understand what those patterns are. Oh, here's my pattern. Here's my pattern of self-doubt playing itself out again. Because it's not true, and it's not you. It's simply a pattern that's playing itself out through you. Because you learn to be the responsible one. And so what's the downside of being the responsible one? Have you ever, if you have a strong drive, be responsible. I love it. Often this is a key archetypal quality of the oldest child. Have you ever taken too much on? Not delegated enough? You always say yes. You always say yes. You always say yes. You carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Is that getting you what you need in your life and as a leader? No. But what happens when you say no? You feel disappointed, you feel like you should. Then the narrative starts in your head. Ooh, I should say that, I should be there for everybody. And so, anybody ever self-sacrifice so much because they're taking care of everybody else that they don't take care of themselves? No. Really? Well, it's great to think about, again, how you cast your own personality. Personality is nothing more than a series of patterns of how you think, what you feel, and what you do. Nobody will know what you think. Nobody's going to know what you feel. They only know one thing. They know your behavior. Now, at its best, right, remember what I said, there's a low level of managed emotion in all of our decision making. What happens when things don't go your way, when things challenge that core self-concept? Then what happens when that negative emotion is there? Does that, by chance, influence how you behave? Does anybody here notice they behave differently when things don't go their way? When they're really like in that place of frustration, place of guilt, place of fear, place of shame, whatever the emotion is, suddenly we're not in charge anymore. That internal caveman comes out. and we start to behave in a way where maybe we go into fight or flight. Maybe we just shut down. Take my marbles and go home. Anybody do that? Ah, yeah. Who are the fighters? Who go the other way? Get a little sarcasm. Get a little edgy, yeah? Oh, yeah, what's your favorite? Yeah. I love it. You get the sarcasm, maybe you get the edge, you get the sharp edge, and it plays out often. This is a beautiful thing. I see folks who will hold their professional persona at work. They hold it all together. They are professional, and then they go home and they take it all out on the people they love most. Anybody? Yeah. Recognize again. These patterns will control you. Who's in charge of you? Are you in charge of your mind, or is your mind in charge of you? When you recognize that your mind is supported by these patterns that you developed decades ago, then you start to realize, maybe I'm not as in charge of me as I think I am. Maybe there's a way to be even better. And part of it is to let go of your attachment to the beliefs about how you think you should be. Who are the youngest children in the room? What'd you learn being the youngest? You get your way. How do you get your way? Who else? Youngest child? How do you get your way?
Well, mine was a different situation. I was the youngest, and I was actually acting as the oldest.
Okay, so you stepped into the role reversal.
The role reversal.
I love it. I love it. Who else identifies as that youngest child and sees that play out? Yeah. So talk about how did you get your way? How did you get your way?
However I needed to, I don't know. I have a brother 2 years older, so.
So is the smile, like you got the smile right there, the charm, the smile and charm. I have 2 young boys. It is phenomenal, it blows me away. My oldest, he came to the world. First 2 years, he got something that the youngest will never get. Undivided parental attention. He was the superstar. It's amazing when you look at theories around how people behave and how they think. Often oldest have certain character traits. They're more traditional. They're the more responsible ones. Those drives get put into their personality and play out for them as leaders to this day. So I watched my oldest, his role shifted. He was the baby. And then in one day, his role shifted. He went from being the baby to what? Being the big boy. Mommy's helper. Immediately, he's getting his attention needs met differently. Oh, get a diaper for mommy, he scrambles over and gets it. But he had, I don't want to say vile, but I will, vile relationship with his brother. He did not like that little thing. Why not? What does brother represent? Suddenly the attention's going to this new place, away from him. The thing he's gotten his whole life. So he learned more and more. Be the responsible, be the achiever, be the competitive one, be the one who wins. And it's so important to him that when he doesn't, guess what? I watch it evoke an emotion in him. He gets frustrated. Now, this is the beautiful thing, though. I think back when my youngest was just learning to cruise, right? He's holding onto the wall and he's cruising. So he can't quite walk, but he's holding himself up. And the first one, it was a miracle when he rolled over in bed, right? Oh my goodness, the angels sung. The second one, like, oh my goodness, we don't have enough time to use it. But no, now we're comparing him. Oh man, remember the old Donovan was much younger when he was doing that. Now we're comparing him. So he's trying to measure himself against his oldest. So here he is cruising down the hallway. We had a house with a hallway, ran to into the kitchen, into the dining room and back, right? A big circle. And they would run. My oldest would run, the youngest was learning how to cruise, learning how to get to the point where he can run. And around the corner comes Donovan, my oldest, with his arms straight out. What's he do? Clotheslines. The youngest, what's he do? Falls down, he cries, and he cries, and he cries. What happens? Oh boy, she does. Oh, my baby! I love it. Donovan stopped being a baby when he was 2. My youngest is now 11. Still a baby. But this is the beautiful thing. How did he get his attention needs met early on? Get hurt? Fall down and cry? It's phenomenal. My wife is also a psychologist. We're like watching this. I'm like, this is textbook. These kids are behaving in ways that we're not. What are we doing here? So the youngest is a future world-class soccer star. Because this kid can fall down and get injuries like you have never seen anybody. And then he's the charmer, though, right? Oh, he's the cute. He is so cute. He knows his smile. He makes his coy little joke. And then he'll instigate his brother. You'll watch him in the backseat. He'll say this stuff to his brother. He knows, gets him, and then sits there. And then meanwhile, his brother's wants to hit him because he's bigger and he's physical. Again, the patterns are being laid down. Your patterns were laid down. What are your patterns? What are the patterns that you generated for yourself early on? This is the key question. To start to explore. When you think about how you tune the instrument of your leadership, yourself, before you can lead anyone else, you must lead yourself. Understand what those patterns are. And those patterns are what you think, what you feel, and what you do. But notice, this is the cool thing. There's a circle around that I put on the board. You are not what you think, what you feel, and what you do. Those are simply patterns that you have picked up along the way. You are much bigger than that. You have an energy state available to you that is untapped. Because in learning these patterns of how to be in the world, you have basically constrained a lot of your energy. You came into the world a feral little human. And you learn very quickly, this is the zone that's okay. From wide open highs and lows, you learn. What happened when you fall down, when you're a 5-year-old, and you fall down and skin your leg and you're falling apart? What do parents tell you? Shake it off. Rub dirt in it. It's okay. Don't cry. We give the message because we want our kids to be strong. Don't feel that way. Basically, we learn, here's the way you come into the world. Now you're in this zone. And this zone becomes something that you wear. Becomes the personality that you're wearing today that's showing up as you lead. Is that the thing that's getting you the best result in your organization? So I encourage you to be curious. Turn your attention inward. You spent your life being trained to master the world around you. Be a good GM. Turn the attention inward a little bit and start to really understand and pay attention to what those patterns are that drive how you think. Because what you think will drive how you feel. And at its best, what you think will drive what you do. And when that goes south, what you feel drives what you do. But none of that is really purposeful. None of that is conscious. None of that is intentional. Even if we might believe it is. It's really a set of patterns playing themselves out. Why does this matter? Well, you think about the roles required of you as a leader in your organization. Imagine a spectrum. One end of the spectrum is getting the task done, right? Roll up your sleeves, work hard. That's one expectation, one duty required of you in any job. But the other end is more about building relationships. It's about getting things done through others. Now think about your very first job you ever had. Who could throw out an example? What was your first job? What do you got?
15-year-old dishwasher.
15-year-old dishwasher. Love it.
Serving Italian ice.
Serving Italian ice. So as a dishwasher, Italian ice server, where were your duties on the spectrum? So you had to manage your relationship with the cook. And maybe if somebody from the front of the house came in, you had to be pleasant with them. But for the most part, this is great. Man. Your job was in getting things done. So there's a spectrum of duties. Now, how long did you wash dishes?
2 years.
How long?
Well, I've washed dishes all my life.
2 years. Now, what happens if you're a good dishwasher? What eventually will probably happen?
Cook. Good luck.
Yeah, well, maybe. I think my first job ever, I worked at Wendy's, right? Wendy's hamburgers. I was a star burger flipper. I could put that thing on there, 2 minutes later, flip it over. Amazing. I got recognized. Accolades. Burger flipper of, well, I didn't get accolades. But I did flip the burgers. And so over time, what happens? Okay, now you mastered that task. Now it's time to move over to, I'm the fry guy. And I'm putting it in, putting the fry basket down, and when the buzzer goes off, I lift it up and I dump it into the bin and shake salt on it. Beautiful. And eventually, over time, what will happen? I become not only a doer, but a team lead, which is what happened. Now I'm the team lead in the back of the house, and Wendy's is a 15-year-old kid. Where are my duties on the spectrum? It starts to shift. Yes, I still have to get stuff done, but now I have to get stuff done through others. This is the amazing thing for me, too. You think about our culture, the bias in our culture. When individuals are really good at their task, in fact, you might spend your whole life, your education, studying how to do a particular thing, and then you master that particular thing, and what happens? You get promoted. You get promoted into a different skill set that may or may not be the skill set that got you there in the first place. Now there's a different level of expectations required of you. Now, had I not been fired from Wendy's, let's just imagine that, and I had continued to be really good as a team lead, what would have happened? Promoted again. Now I'm the shift leader. Assistant manager. Better making the big bucks, right? The quote. It's a little for me. What happens now the further into leadership as I become a team lead? Or let's just say not team lead. As I become a shift manager, where's my responsibilities? It continues to shift. It continues. The higher the organization, yes, there are particular tasks to get done, but there's really a stairway of ascension. There's a different mindset, a different set of duties that are required that you must embrace. And it's not just that you can just build relationships. You also have to get stuff done. You have to wear both hats, but the hat starts to shift. What determines how you build relationships with individuals? What determines how you do that? What's that?
Your personality.
It comes back 100%. How you build relationships comes back to how you learn to be in the world. Originally, some people are no nonsense. They're direct. They're competitive. They say it once. They expect you to get it and move forward. I love it. I worked with a guy back in the day of the credit default swap derivatives. Remember what happened to this calamity back in 2006, 7, 8? So I had a guy I was working with who was a savant. He was a genius with derivatives. So much so, he was an industry leader. The financial institution quickly ascended him because he was so good at this into one of the highest levels of leadership in the organization. And guess what happened? He failed miserably. He was the worst. He wasn't a leader. He was a good doer. But the bias in our culture is that if you're good at doing, you're promoted into a relationship building role. This is the other interesting thing too. I've known leaders who do this so well, right? The higher you go into an organization, the more it's important to, not only be able to build relationships, but this is about engagement, right? It's about getting people on board, moving the same direction together towards a vision. To have clarity of the vision and to make sure you're getting people moving that direction. Has it ever happened that you find yourself sometimes when you're scrambling, when you're triggered, that you end up rolling up your sleeves and getting down into the operations? You end up becoming the doer as opposed to the one who's lifting others and helping others to become better at doing. Instead of creating engagement, and in our minds, we think, well, like Mom used to say, right? If you want it done right, do it yourself. So what happens? We start doing it ourselves. As opposed to, and we create a logic saying this is easier, it's faster, it's what I need to do. Sometimes we miss the mark. And some of the great leaders I've known who do this really well, what happens when things don't go their way? When they feel backed into a corner, where do you think they go? Command, control. What's that?
She said to the freezer. To the freezer.
To the walk in with the door shut, screaming. And then they come back often. If they don't have some mechanism to regulate the emotionality going on inside, what happens? That emotion starts to drive us. We have some idea of how things should be, and then maybe we feel like we're disappointed. Maybe we feel like we're not meeting the numbers we need to. So we go into more of this command control because the emotion's starting to drive us. And I've seen folks who get more direct, more critical, more sharp, and they say, hey, at this point, I don't care if this is the way it's going to be done. Beautiful. You might win the battle. Will you win the war? What is the war? To what extent is attrition? To what extent is attrition an issue in your stores? Are people staying? Are people turning over? What do you experience?
Attrition is a problem, Dr.
Thank you.
There was a lot of blank stares. Like, did you really answer?
I just started 3 days ago.
You're still there. You're still there. Right. 3 days in. 100%. Well, attrition, of course, across industries, it's a problem. Why is it that people stay or leave? What's happening in the culture? What's the culture that keeps people?
Leaders.
Well, let's jump forward a little bit. I want to talk about and how this ties together. So remember, how you build relationships goes back to how you've created your personality. There are no-nonsense types. There are facilitative types. There are, it's interesting. We talked about the youngest child and the oldest child. We didn't talk about the middle child because they're not. I mean, they're used to being overlooked, right? Right. Who are you? We'll give you a moment in the spotlight. Okay. Sure. And what is their role? Like, what does the middle child learn? How does the middle child, archetypally, not for everybody, but in general, what happens in the psyche of the middle child? What are the patterns that get ingrained in their neural fabric? Your middle child? What'd you learn being a middle?
So you're pretty much following the lead of the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the youngest, you're trying to fight for that attention that the younger ones get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're following the lead, you're looking for attention. How do you do that? So who do you become and all that?
Person kind of shouts out and stands out and does completely different than what the rest of the family did.
I love it. I love it. I love it. How did you become different than the rest?
I lived for 25 years away from my family.
Okay.
Only until about a year ago I moved closer.
So it's such a brilliant answer. I was in a bookstore in northern Michigan. I saw this book, the birth order book, and I pulled it out and I went right to the youngest child. I'm the youngest child. And I started reading. And it said, "You can't fool me, youngest child. I know you opened the book to this page, skipped everything else, and started reading." And I literally looked up, like, holy. Went over, bought the book, and it was beautiful to see what they told about youngest, oldest, and middle. Middle children are often the one who expresses themselves most, for lack of a better word, I'll say eccentrically, but different. They compare themselves to the oldest, so they're the ones out of the box, most inventive, and often live the furthest from home. What a weird thing. But there it is. I have 2 older sisters. I'm the youngest, my oldest sister followed the traditional path, did what she should, the family hero, the heir apparent, middle child, moved out to New York City, didn't talk to the family for decades. Gone. Yeah, these roles we get cast in, are we in charge of us? Or are these patterns in charge of us? Who's in charge here? What do you want to be?
So how can you be, when you're developing as a parent, I know this is, sorry, totally not anything to do with this, but as a parent, how can you be more intentional so that this doesn't happen?
Well, I told you my story. Hey, we've got 2 kids who are both psychologists and they're playing these roles out. The best thing you can do is A, provide a loving environment. Allow your kid to make their own mistakes, not help them avoid the mistakes that you made. And there's nothing wrong with these patterns we're talking about, right? It's a secret to your success, right? It's your strength. But guess what? It's also your Achilles heel. It's both at the same time. And learning to be okay with that, that's the key. And helping your kids to have resilience. Learning to have more resilience yourself. Helping your employees to be more resilient. Because a lot of them will have these needs that are so deep, they don't see them. But if they feel like somehow they let you down, or they're not heard, or their voice doesn't matter, it's going to evoke some of this emotionality. And what's that look like? They show up late. They don't follow through on what they say they're going to do. Gossip. They start to get in conflict with other people. But when people feel like their buckets are filled, they feel like they belong, they feel like they're heard, they're listened to. It's all those soft skills make a difference. Absolutely. How do you bring out the best in them? It starts by bringing out the best in yourself. So that's the key, is being non-reactive yourself. What does it mean to be non-reactive? How do you do that? It starts with understanding, oh, I'm just looking at the world a certain way. What if I change the way I looked at it? Because 100% of the time, the reaction you have, emotional reaction, whenever you have an emotional reaction, 100% of the time, that's based on some idea, some belief that you're holding on to. I believe it should be this way. I'm seeing something different. It's evoking an emotion, and now I come in with my self-righteousness to tell you how right I am in a really sophisticated way. And some of the stuff, right, when we get into this caveman mode, can be very sophisticated. You know, now, instead of throwing a tantrum as a 4-year-old, I do it with that adult sophistication. I use my language in a sharp way just to make sure my wife understands I'm the guy. That's helpful in me having the life I want with my wife, right? I'm good at being right. Doesn't get me on anything. So, your personality will drive, it's an inside job, number one. Number two, it drives how you build relationships. And why does that matter? I'm going to tell you. But first I want to do a quick time check to make sure I'm not going. Who's got it? What's that? Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. The Gallup poll. Y'all heard of the Gallup poll? Gallup organization, they do these surveys. This is brilliant in my mind. They found that individuals in American organizations, they fall into one of 3 categories. They're actively engaged, they're not engaged, or they're actively disengaged. What do people look like when they're actively engaged? Turn to somebody right now, and I want you to explain, talk about the behavior in 30 seconds. What do you see when somebody is actively engaged? One of your employees, somebody in the store is actively engaged, what do you see? Verbalize it right now. Okay, posture. Yeah, absolutely.
Eye contact.
Eye contact. What else?
They're asking questions.
They're asking questions. They're proactive. These are the ones who show up. It starts with that. They at least show up. They're solution focused, not problem focused. Right? These are your star players. You know who they are. Then you have these individuals who are not engaged. How do you know if somebody's not engaged?
On their phone.
They don't talk, they're on their phone. What else would you see?
Going
Related. What do we have over here?
They don't come to team building, is what Robert said.
They don't come to team building. Robert, is that possibly a trigger for you? That Robert?
I've got a lot of them already. I'm above the line.
You're above the line. Love it, I love it. What else do we see when somebody's not engaged? Yeah.
They go and they hide somewhere in the store and they try to stay out of sight.
They hide in the store, they stay out of sight. These are the ones flying below the radar, right? They're doing time, putting in the hours, and working for the weekend to get the heck out of there. They're not the ones who are doing the heavy lifting, but they're showing up, they're a body, doing what you tell them to do. And they'll often do the basic minimum job description. But they're not going above and beyond. Lastly, we have this group of actively disengaged individuals. What do these people look like? Negative. What else do you see when somebody's disengaged? What's that? They call out.
They're combative.
They're combative. Anybody ever know a combative individual in your organization? Yeah. What else do you see? Somebody's actively disengaged. How would you know? What's that? Threatening. Yeah. These are the folks who are, well, what's the impact? Somebody's actively disengaged. What's the impact on your team? Toxicity. They create more disengagement. Yeah, they bring that almost like a toxic quality into the organization. I saw a post recently. I mean, how often do we leave? We have a top performer, somebody who's getting results, but they're actively disengaged. They're like toxic, but getting results. Do we keep them? I've seen many organizations that do.
There's something they're crazy.
This is the. What do you think they found out? I want you to write down some numbers. What percentage of people, a cross section of American employees, what percentage are actively engaged? What did they find out? What percentage is not engaged? What percentage is actively disengaged? Write down 3 numbers that come somewhere around 100%, give or take. This is in the U.S., and this survey has been done over the last several decades, again and again and again, to provide some feedback on what American engagement looks like. Okay, everybody, I'm not going to let you off the hook. You have to write 3 numbers down. So we're going to see now, start to understand how your beliefs might drive some of your behaviors through this lens. What percentage of people are actively engaged? Shout out some numbers over here. 25? 45?
32.
Okay, let me ask this. Who's above 45? What do you got? 70? Anybody above 70? So we have over here, the high range is 70. What's the low? I heard 25.
I said
20, 10. So I think below 10. Check it out. So we're asking the question, what is active engagement? What they find out? They did scientific research and found there's a certain amount of people who are actively engaged. And this is based on, again, scientific research. Your perception ranges by 60%. What on earth would create that huge variance in perception? What is it about personality? What happened? Why would some people say 10% and some say 70%? Based on what? What the perception? You have experiences. Your experiences might change your thinking. Your thinking might. Is it possible that if you believe 10% are actively engaged, you might behave differently with individuals than if you believe 70% are actively engaged? Is it possible? You better believe it. Your thinking, beliefs, drive behaviors. And that's what's getting the results in your organization. If you want different results, you got to change your behaviors. And your behaviors are driven by beliefs. So I love that range. Not engaged. What's the highest number in the room? Shout it out. Who's got above 50? 60. Who's got above 60? 70. Who's got above 70? 70. All right. Similar high. What's the lowest number? Anybody below 50?
44.
30. Who's below 30? 20. Who's below 20? I just want you to see that these lenses that you've created now are influencing how you are projecting or interpreting what the results are regarding engagement. What about not engaged? How many of these bad apples are there, percentage-wise? 30%? 20? 38. 38, 50. Okay, who's below 15? Anybody below 15? What do you got? 10. 10%. Who's below 10? I love it. 10% here, so it's hardly any. Okay, who's above 38? What do you got?
60.
60! You got 70? Yeah, I love it. So we got 10 to 70. Wow, we got this all the way down. The numbers only equal 100%. Look at how different your view is than somebody else sitting right next to you. You're saying 10% or 70%. Is it possible? So if you believe 70% of the people are actively disengaged in their job, that might influence your behavior. You better believe it. You better believe it. This is why it's so important to understand the beliefs that are driving your behaviors and to know that you got them legitimately. And when you got them, your survival was at stake. But guess what? They have a hold on you. And they're dictating and driving what you're doing. In fact, your instrument is out of tune because of it. You're not your best self. The reality is, so I love to see this and to understand that there's a bias baked into you that you might not even see. What Gallup actually found, active engagement. Numbers hover right around 30% over decades. It might go up a couple points, down a couple points. Not engaged, around 50%. Actively disengaged, around 20%. This is the challenge for you to start, but really pay attention. So it's 30, 15, 20. You got it right? Oh my goodness. Star student. So what is this telling us? This is the old 80-20 rule, but the new way. It's not what we're seeing scientifically. 30% of the people are doing most of the work. Is this right?
21.
Let me ask this, folks. Question for you. Stay with me, stay with me. Where does your attention go as a leader? Do you focus on the actively engaged individual, the not engaged individuals, or the actively disengaged individuals?
You're going to be actively disengaged.
And actively engaged.
So often, this is what I see. Squeaky wheel down here. We're dealing with this difficult employee, and then we're dumping more on these folks because they're getting stuff done. Where's the greatest potential?
In the middle.
Why are they, back to your question, why are individuals below this line? Why are they not engaged and actively disengaged? Imagine back to day 3 of somebody's job. Where are they? Generally, when somebody starts a new job, what's up? They're excited, they're fired up, they get this new thing. And what we're seeing is that over time, something's happening that is creating disengagement. What on earth are we doing that's beating the engagement out of them? What's that? Keeping bad employees. The Gallup organization found that there's one overarching influential factor that determines engagement in an organization.
Bad leaders.
Badly, well, determines. Good leaders also can determine engagement, right? But it's leaders is the key. The number one thing, number one, the boss. What do they say? People don't leave their job, they leave their boss. They leave their boss. What is it bosses are doing that's working or not working? What's the most effective, impactful thing that a leader can do that can help create more engagement?
Listen.
Listen, what else?
Set clear expectations.
Clear expectations, listen,
Not acknowledgement.
acknowledgement, validation. You know what they found it comes down to? Relationships. Is it money? Throw more money at it. I see that war. I got a couple organizations that are in that war, just the price that they're paying more and more and more. And guess what? Money does not create engagement. People feeling like they're part of something, like they're part of the band, right? Like they're included, like they're insiders, like their opinion makes a difference, like they're heard, like they're listened to. This is the thing. What on earth are we doing that's creating this level of disengagement? It's not somewhere else, but when we see them, we think these are the knuckleheads that we have to contend with. Guess what? Why are they a knucklehead? What are they seeing in us? In these patterns that we've created, when we know we're right, we know we're doing the right thing, maybe we're just rolling up our sleeves to help. Guess what? That creates a perception. What's the possible perception that gets created? If you're a strong driver and you're ultra responsible and you're rolling up your sleeves to get things done, how are others perceiving that? Possibly. What's that say about their role?
Failure.
They're not important.
They don't trust you.
Yet you're doing their job. What do you need me for? I mean, it's amazing how we can marginalize people without even knowing we're doing it. Because we know we're doing the right thing for the situation, and you know what? It's 100% the wrong thing for the situation, but we have an airtight logic that we've developed. It goes all the way back. Conscious leadership is about uprooting those patterns that aren't working for you, because it goes back to results. Results is not doing more of the same thing. This is what the results are across the country because of leadership. You've got 30% of people who are being heaped on more stuff. You've got these actively disengaged individuals. Why are people actively disengaged? Their emotion's in charge. Emotion is driving them. And until you can recognize and lift the individuals in your organization, you're going to continue to struggle. Now imagine this. I want you to do a little thought experiment. Imagine in your store. What if you could be the force that moved the needle of engagement in your store? What would the impact be? What if you could move it 5%? What if you could have, instead of just worrying, I've seen organizations that are so metric bound. It's brilliant. Pay attention to the metrics. But when you're focused on the metrics, what aren't you focused on? And your job is to get them to perform so that you hit the metrics. Wow. What if you can move that needle? What if you moved it 5%? What impact would it have in your store? The Gallup organization found the top 10% most successful organizations out there had a different level of active engagement. What do you guess? How high is the active engagement in organizations like Google, organizations like SAS? They found, exactly right, 70%. That's gold. That's gold. That's only 70%. That's attainable. That's doable. Right? Talk about creating a culture that rocks. This is what we're talking about. But recognize it doesn't happen when you're just outward facing. The work is inside. Because you will do the same thing again and again and again. You'll play out the same patterns. If you want to level up, if you want to take the store and this organization up to the highest potential, it requires change within you. It requires pulling off that mask you developed for yourself and looking at it. It requires doing some things out of your comfort zone. As you step out of your comfort zone, that's where growth happens. As you remember for yourself the importance of not only getting stuff done, but also know that sometimes getting stuff done will undermine what you're trying to create, and that culture that thrives, that culture of complete active engagement. And it all goes back. It all goes back. So folks, my time is winding up, but I just want to say this. You have, remember this larger circle. You have so much more potential in you if you can begin to manage your consciousness. Start to manage your mind. Pay attention to where you pay attention. Attention pays. Attention pays. What you pay attention to is what you get more of. So pay attention to how you are creating active engagement in your organization. How are you letting people feel connected? Feeling part of something larger. Feeling part of a larger movement. A movement. Using your personality to do that. That is the key to taking this organization to the next level. So, thank you.
We're going to do a very quick activity here. Mark, will you grab the microphone and you can start with yourself. I know. So the next thing we're moving into is a team building activity. So we thought it would be maybe a good quick moment if we, as a home office team, stood up and just said a quick hi, who we are, and what department we're in. And I see Donna's actually ahead of you, so maybe Donna goes first. Mark, you
I don't
want
want
to
to
take
cheat her
Donna
out.
the microphone. So, and then Robert's going to take us from there. So just a quick, you stand up, say hi.
Hello, I'm Donna Brown, and I'm the director for
Name and role.
There we go. I'm Donna Brown, and I'm in the accounting department.
I'm Mark McLaughlin, and I work in the IT department. Kevin Holler, and I also work in the IT department.
Scarborough, I guess IT, Crunch Town.
I'm the senior marketing manager for the Signature Brands and work with South Florida and Raleigh and Wilmington.
Will Hand, I'm the senior marketing manager for Carolina Ale House.
My name is Sammy, and I am the IT help desk specialist. I usually am helping you guys out if you guys have issues.
Good morning, my name is Paul DeLello. I'm a facilities technician. Been with the company 16 months so far.
I'm in marketing, and I do all the little things you need.
Pretty much everybody knows me. I'm Robert. I'm in training and anything else that they ask me to do.
Hi, I'm Dottie Little. I am the controller as of January 3rd.
I'm Jennifer Jermaine. I'm in the accounting department. Amy Howe, and I'm payroll administrator.
Lee Snyder, I'm in purchasing.
Said I'm in marketing and I'm our director, so you guys are the graphic thing.
Hi, I'm Tara Scarborough. I work in the HR department and I'm part of the talent acquisition and hiring.
Hello, I'm Heather Fitnich. I get to work in human resources.
Family support. I'm in the HR department as well. I'm your Paycom go-to. I'm Hattie, the accounting snitch Streeter. Here to me every morning. John.
Oh, thank you, man. John Galanos, facilities manager.
Good morning, I'm Luke Tolan, and I am the purchasing coordinator.
Alicia Bustry, and I work in the accounting department.
I'm Ivy McMillan, and I'm also a graphic designer.
I'm Kelly Stuntbury. I just started 3 days ago. I am going to be the project coordinator for Tanya, so I'll be working directly with Tanya to take on a bunch of projects, and we'll see how the role develops from here.
Good morning, Kat Goldfaden. I work with the Creative team, marketing.
I'm Chelsea, and I work in marketing for Signature Brands.
I'm Tanya. You all have met us. I'm the leadership team.
Lots of curveballs. Ben's over here laughing at me. He said, I've seen you scratch and change names like 15 times over here. So what we're going to do is we have a team building activity. Everybody's been broken down into a team of 4. Most of you have been wondering what that name is on your name tag. There is one team that we had to eliminate due to some people not being able to attend. So 9 Inch Kales, you kind of got switched around over to some different teams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up the 4 people, and then what you're going to do is I'm going to hand you your packet. You're going to head downstairs, and then we have Kelly, we have Leslie, and we have Mike down there to kind of give you some instructions. What's in your packet? We'll have everybody that's on your team, what your role is, and then there's a name tag in there that you will take that off. I'm going to be very like peanut butter jelly time. Take it off and put it on there so we know exactly what role you're in, because we will be looking for the cheaters. There are them, and they're cheaters. And then there is This instructions in here are basically the rules, one for each person for you to be able to look at. So what they're going to do is they're going to take you over to your stations, so that way you have an idea of where it is. Don't be looking behind any of the cardboard things that are up. That would be cheating. Okay? That's the very first rule, by the way, when you look on there, no cheating. All right. The first group, which is Port Floyd. I mean, you're gonna love these names, by the way. I need Rob, Shirley, Charla, Allison, and Jennifer. Just so you know, I had to make a quick change. Jennifer, you are now the builder. You are the runner. Jennifer, and Allison, you are the feedbacker. Okay? So where is Rob? Here you go, Rob. All four of you can start heading downstairs. The faster we do this, the more time you have to complete your activity. So time is not very good right now. All right, Brett Zeppelin. Brett Zeppelin. I need Shan, Lyle, Mike McCann, and Lee Russell. Next one is, let's see, I got these out of order. All right, Phil Young. We've got Sheila Jennings, Kelly Stutchburg, Lisa Boers, and Laura Neely. Start heading downstairs. Come back. There you go. All right, then we have Fleetwood Mac and Cheese. All right, we have Kara, Patty, Nina, and Donna Brown.
Yeah, let's go! Let's roll out.
All right, then we have the Bagels. We have Carrie, Sammy, Ivy, and Ryan Coyle. Then we have Grateful Bread. We have Jim Pauley, Chris Langston, James Williams, and Dennis Paul. Okay, then we have Phil Collards, Rick Thompson, Lee Schneider, Shireen Howe, and Paul D. That's you, Paul. And Paul, your name's not on there, but you're a feedbacker. All right, then we have the Allman Brothers. We got Tina, we got Brett Calabrino, Luca, and Luke Scott. Okay, Crosby, Stills, and mashed potatoes. We got Bobby, Marco, Tom. We got the Florida group, basically. Tom, Lee, and Eric. You know it. I know, you guys already cheated. You did everything together. Okay, Elton Johnny Cakes. We got Dottie Little, David P. from Garner, Jennifer Germain, and Leanne King. Well, I'll do some quick problem solving when I get downstairs. Let's see. We got David Bowtie Pasta, Mark Zecker, Ashley Green, Alicia Vesterby, and John Galanos. All right. Bruce Springroll. We've got Mark McLaughlin, Kevin. All right. Elvis Parsley. We got Tara, Luis Hernandez, Jamie, and Sarah Nichols. All right, we got Jukebox Hero. We got Philip, Mady, Katsuchi. So can you find Katsuchi? He's out there. Elkin and Brian.
All right. Great. Is there some person that's great James Robert?
No.
Very powerful.
Johnny Cashew. We got Mary Ann, Brandon Childress, Ben Musser, and Chelsea.
Let's go, Brandon.
Then we got Earth, Wind, and Fireball. We got Will Hand, Mike Bickle, Kristen Harris, and Hugo.
We had some folks that had a top secret assignment and those were the engineers. What that engineer built through the runner, the builder, and the feedback. Sounds easy, doesn't it? How many of you have done this before? Okay, it's never the same twice. Never the same twice. And just so anybody thinks that you're so close to each other that you're going to be able to hear instructions, okay? Everybody's building something different. Just so you're aware of that. And if there are duplicates, they're probably on the opposite side of the building. All right, engineers, raise your hands. All right, here's the role of the engineer. They built the prototype. They can see the picture and the instructions of the prototype. They can touch the pieces. They can have conversation with the runner and the feedbacker. They can ask questions to the runner and the feedbacker. They cannot talk to the builder. That's why they're on the opposite side of the room. They cannot use hand motions to the runner. Hence, that's why we have cardboard, so you're behind the cardboard, and the runner stands right here and looks at this. But they can't really see the engineer. And they cannot show the runner the prototype or any of the pieces or the instructions. Engineers, everybody understand those rules? Okay? By the way, we have a lot of people walking around trying to find you that are not following the rules. All of the ELT team is carrying a question. What you were supposed to build, you had your time. You do have to duplicate what you actually built. Okay, just listen to the instructions. Let's go to the builders. All right, builders, raise your hands. Okay, the builders, you cannot see a picture or instructions of the prototype. You can touch the pieces that you have behind your barrier. You cannot talk to the engineer. You can have conversation with the runner and the feedbacker. You cannot show the pieces or what you're doing to the runner. You can show the pieces or what you are doing to the feedbacker. And you cannot use any hand motions as well. Okay. For those of you that talk with your hands, you're in trouble. Okay, runners, here's your instructions. The runner, you can talk to the engineer, the feedbacker, and the builder. You can ask questions to the engineer, the builder, and the feedbacker. You cannot see the prototype, pictures or the instructions. You cannot see or touch the pieces, and you cannot see what the builder is making. Okay, everybody understand those runners? Feedbacker is the best role ever. Okay, feedbacker, you cannot initiate conversation with anyone at any time. You can only answer a question with yes or no. Okay, where's all my feedbackers? Okay, let's practice. Yes or no? Yes. Okay, good. Again, you can only say yes or no, period. Okay, you can see the prototype. You can see the picture and the instructions. You can see what the builder is producing. You cannot touch the pieces of the engineer or the builder. And you cannot use hand motions. It's fun, trust me. All right, here are the rules. When we first started doing this activity years ago, we only had 2 rules. Look how many we have now. Okay, first one, no cheating of any kind. We're not cheaters. Okay, we're not going to do that. Okay, no pictures with your phones. Okay, somebody tried to take a picture, we've seen that. Okay, no use of the phone of any kind. You can't go to Dr. Google and try to pull up the instructions of what you're doing. No social media. No drawing of any kind on your hands, other body parts, on paper, or any air drawing. No hand gestures. Sounds like this, 4 syllables, all that kind of stuff. No looking at other teams' prototype or what the builder is producing. Trust me, you don't want to because they're probably building something different. No sharing with other teams. Must follow all instructions based on your role. No running or tripping of others. This is a safe, fun activity. Okay? How many of you are competitive? Most of you are. Okay? So, what time is it? Does everybody know where their two stations are? One of them has engineer, one of them has building. Okay, everybody listen up. It's going to be really easy. If you're an engineer or if you're in this room, you're probably going to have a station somewhere in this general vicinity. If you're back over in the library, you're probably going to have your stations here and then over here. You want to find those locations. You have, let's see, you have 45 minutes to complete this activity. Go. 17 teams, so that is 34 kits. You know, and by the way, Kelly, thank you for putting a whole bunch of these kits back together, and then we have to separate them out. So, you guys have fun? Okay. Show me the hands of everybody that got frustrated. Okay, it's about normal. Okay, good. All right, couple of questions. Before you got started, we brought you down here. How many of you used that time and that opportunity to do some pre-planning on what the activity was going to be? Okay. All right. How many engineers? How many engineers in here told your group what you were building? Raise your hand. That kind of helps, don't you? Because then you have a visual. Some of you had no idea what you were building because Mark's over there going to some kind of prehistoric warthog or something. Which is exactly what it is. They have the same one. Alright, so if you had an opportunity to do this again, which you probably will at some time, and some of you have done this like 4 times, what would you do differently for pre-planning? Somebody raise your hand. Nothing?
I make sure I get the Jeep again.
He'd get the Jeep again. Get people that have built Legos before. Okay. Hey, just think about that. That's a challenge. Common language. How many times do we hire somebody into our restaurants that has 0 restaurant experience? It's kind of like 0 Lego experience. Remember, Jim talked yesterday that we need to go out and find those rock stars, and those rock stars may not even be working in our industry. So, kind of think about that. All right, so engineers, raise your hands. All right. So, what were your biggest challenges? What was your biggest challenge?
Once we got that down, it went pretty quick.
You know what, to make that, all the engineers come up here to the front. That way I can pass the microphone around so I want everybody to hear.
In the beginning, definitely communication. For me, you know, knowing that what I actually built and trying to, you know, get it across to you was a little frustrating on you know, on our end, but we got through it.
Okay.
A little bit.
Anybody else want to share what their biggest frustrations were?
I would say the
Here, come talk.
verbiage piece of like what I see and what they see was the hardest, difficult piece of it, but that's something we should have discussed in the beginning. So.
Like it helps coming up with names for the little pieces, like, oh, this looks like a speaker box, we'll call this the speaker box. And
Okay,
things like
good.
that.
Yeah, just the language.
Yeah.
Any other engineers want to share what their any frustrations they had?
I will. For me, I was one of those that have never built Legos before. So as I'm building it, you know, beforehand, I'm like, all right, forget it, just go on to the next part. So I skipped like half of the instructions. So it was hard to tell them what I did because I don't know what I did. I just put pieces together. So I would definitely follow the instructions better. Oh, easy.
And follow the directions. Okay. All right. All right. So engineers, thinking back, I know the ones that finished have something they're going to say that went well.
Just communication.
Yeah, so I think in the very beginning, the communication in the beginning, we started off really good, then we got to the harder, smaller pieces, and communication started breaking down at that point.
Okay.
I'll say that, you know, just being able to describe the pieces in a way that the team understood when they didn't really know what the piece was really, really important. Just breaking down, you know, what it visually looks like.
All right. Anybody? So, do we ever do that as managers? Okay, ELT. Who else? General managers, district managers, department managers, anybody that probably manages a group that is going to have some kind of a project or information that they have to communicate over to a runner to be able to get that information to somewhere else. Those are your engineers. So that's why when you talk about common language, did they understand, you know, those type of things. How many of you did reverse engineering? Reverse engineering, what the engineers did is they took their thing apart, they built it once, took it apart, and then started building it together so that way they could walk through the process. So that's just a strategy. Bill, how many engineers asked the runner to repeat back what I just told you? Okay, good. You know what? That's to make sure that you got good, clear understanding of what we did, and it saves you a trip. All right, so that's the engineers. Let's get to the builder. Bring the builders up here.
Time for the go.
You guys look pissed off. All right, builders. What were your challenges? Anybody want to share what your challenges were as a builder?
Having any idea at all what we were doing.
Okay.
I think the response, the yes and no, was really driving me crazy. More direction. Yeah.
The waiting.
The waiting.
The terminology, everybody on the same page.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, is the terminology. If I think of something like 2x4 or 2x8, someone else may call it something different because it gets confusing. So wait, which one?
So some people were calling them bumps, some people were calling them dimples, some people were calling them, yeah. They got some weird things. Anybody?
I think the yes and no, also doing things 2 and 3, 4 times until you got that right yes. So that was very
Put the positioning out there with the yes or no. Yeah.
Anybody else, any other builders have any other challenges? Nope. Want to share? Okay, so builders, what went well? So think about what went well.
Nothing.
Well, we finished first, so everything went well. Also, we're the first losers. All right, so
You also had the easiest one.
I think what went well is that we were able to kind of get into that groove and get into the communication, and once we were, then it just was smooth sailing from there. So figured it out.
Good way to start.
I was gonna say, I think the biggest thing was just taking all the colors and dividing them out that way so that I can point and just say, is it this color, is it this, is it this?
Good.
That was helpful.
Great strategy, great strategy. Great strategy. But like I said, you know what, I wish we had enough time for everybody to kind of complete the task, and I know that's the biggest frustration that everybody had, so, go ahead, Sandy.
I tried to at least, sorry, it's strange with it right behind me. I tried to at least see if I could figure it out while they were away, so that it would kind of keep me busy, but sometimes I would figure something out, sometimes I would not. I would have to backtrack, but there was once or twice where I was able to set them straight back.
Oh, I never said this.
All right, so who do you think in the organization the builders are? Yep, hourly team members. Okay, so think about that. Here the engineers are sending information over to the builder. The builder's sitting there waiting and waiting, getting frustrated. How many of you builders started taking the initiative and going ahead before the instructions? Okay, good. Mike did, I watched him. He had it all lined out and it was all ready to go. He had the axles there, he had the wheels there. Okay? So think about your hourly team members. If they're waiting for your direction, they're going to start doing things on their own. And they may not be correct, they make mistakes, or maybe they get it right. They get it right, what do? Give them a high five, give them acknowledgement. But those are the things. Your team members need information constantly from the management team and such. All right, so let's get over to the runners. Let's bring the runners up. Don't run or anything or hurry. All right, runners. Who would like to share what challenges that you had during this activity? Come on up here.
Not being able to see the picture at all, relying on one person telling you, the other person's kind of there to guide you a little bit. So I was asking, so does it look like this? Does it look like that? And then running back to the builder and once again giving direction and then just waiting.
Okay.
Waiting, yeah.
Good. All right, Mark.
So not using any hand gestures, because as managers and as we're talking, we're not naturally just doing this and doing that. But I caught myself 3 or 4 times. Is it? No. If
you have to say, is it square, is it this, not, is it this way, is it vertical and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's managing without hand gestures and without just expressions. It's difficult.
I think for me it was asking the right questions. Since I wasn't able to see what was being built, and the person that I was relying on to give me information could only describe things to the best of his ability, and then the other person that is able to see is a yes or no. You know, that's the only answer you can give me. It was finding the right questions in my mind. Like, okay, what's next? What does it look like? You know, that was the hardest part for me. I think was because if I couldn't get the right answer or the right question and ask the right question, then I felt lost.
Yeah, I think for us it was really, the runner's kind of the liaison between the builder or the engineer and the builder. So it was finding that common language, being able to translate what you're hearing from the directions and trying to communicate that. I think that was tough because we couldn't see the pictures. So my perception of what I was seeing was actually completely different from what that end result was. So that was difficult.
Mike, you want to?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of it was, at least for me, trying to figure out the right questions. You're not able to see it, and then you have to have really good, effective communication with the engineer. And we try to solidify that in this organization. Then you not be able to see what they're building and trying to get feedback in that direction was, cumbersome in some ways. So, it really was for me about a lot of effective communication.
Yeah, I think a lot of you have already hit the common language. Everybody all singing off the same sheet of music. Okay, everybody hopefully pointing north because we all know which direction we're going. So, that's definitely challenges that we have today in our organization. When you're bringing in individuals that have zero experience or coming in from different industries, we have the same thing with management, all those type of things. They may not everybody understands what 86 is. Huh? 86? Well, where's 87? What about 88? They may not know what that is. You'll know that by just reading their faces. Okay. So runners, what went well? Who wants what's some best practices that you took on, runners?
The groove of it, as far as common language, we started, making up names like the wrench and the bookend piece. So, yeah, and once we found that common language, things went pretty smoothly.
That was what I was resonating with.
Okay, good.
All right. So, who do you think in the organization are runners? Huh? Managers, shift leads, probably everybody in this room, depending on what position, what role you're in, and who's communicating the information to. So if ELT is the engineers, okay, guess what? Your runners are probably going to be vice president of operations, your district managers. If your district managers are the engineers, general managers are probably going to be the runners, trying to get the information down to the management team during management meetings. So think about menu rollouts. Who's engineering the menu rollout? How do we get that information all the way down to the hourly team members? Okay, good. All right, feedbackers. Do not throw anything at me. There was a reason why most of them are feedbackers because, what was it, a month ago we did this? Yeah, a month ago they had just done this. So they kind of, some of you hadn't experienced it and everything else. But, all right, so feedbackers, what was your biggest challenge?
Go ahead.
Well, if you have or don't have control issues, this is a very, very bad job for you. I think the biggest part was seeing them struggle, and I knew what it was, and they weren't asking me questions, and all I had to say was yes or no. So that was probably the biggest thing, like seeing it, and then I'm just like, hello, use me over here. So that was my biggest thing.
Well, I like to talk, and I was only allowed to say yes and no, and that did not suit me well. So yeah, that was the biggest struggle, not being able to talk. That's how I get everything done and accomplished. So that was, y'all picked the right person to make it challenging.
Yeah, I would also say there were some questions we wanted to be asked, but they wouldn't ask those specific questions that could have saved a lot of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
so much time.
Yeah.
You got anything, Paul?
No, it's the same thing. Just to resist the temptation to say something more than yes or no was very frustrating.
the biggest challenge for us was the stairs going up and down. From there, definitely no hand gestures, yes and no. We're used to having a whole arsenal of communication styles, and limited to yes and no is very, very hard.
Yeah, just knowing that there's maybe one thing that could get them to where they want to be or need to be, and not being able to give them that. That was definitely one of the biggest struggles.
A lot of questions were asked, a lot of yes and no's went around, but the biggest challenge that I saw was how the information got received on the other end. The common language of describing the product was not there, and it slowed us down a little bit.
Anybody back here have anything on any challenges? Come over here. Get away from the speaker.
Come away from the speaker, yeah.
As far as for our group, we had a lot more no's than we did yes, so that was difficult. I think the complexity of the vehicle was above our pay grade. But, you know, obviously trying to see the vision of what the vehicle was and not getting the questions to get them in the right direction was difficult for us, yes.
I think it was ages 8 to 10 for that one. All right. Anybody feedbackers, what went well? What were some of the things that went well?
The pre-planning.
Pre-planning, okay.
Pre-planning, let them know what we're looking at.
Yeah, I think I was telling the team, as we progressed, there was improvement. We didn't finish the product, but the steps became much easier. So there was improvement, recognizing, oh, this is how you communicate, and that worked well for us.
How many of you cheated? Initiated conversation? Said more than yes or no?
We did.
Okay, it happens. It happens. You know, it just, you know, rules are there. Sometimes you gotta bend them a little bit.
When two Lego pieces are stuck together and Ashley says, I'm gonna break my nail.
You gotta jump in there and take them apart. All right, so who do you think the feedback? Yes, I put a little bit of thought behind. And I'll be honest with you, I put people in roles that I knew was going to make them uncomfortable. I was going to be challenging to them, because the only way that you're going to be able to get stronger at what you do and communication and everything else is put yourself in a role that either you're uncomfortable or it's a challenge. So I really had to think through that process. And then I tried to put teams together that kind of work together a lot, so that's why Signature Brands work together quite a bit. I put the Florida team together because they're back, you know, they're over there in Florida as a group. All right, so who do you think in the organization are our feedbackers? Your guests, okay? Your guests. There you go, all those different types of things. So what do you actually think the purpose of this challenge was? Team building? Communication, people understanding the different roles within your restaurant. You know, somebody may be an engineer, and then being able to explain and making sure that, does that runner have all the information that they need to get over to the builder? Some of you said, oh, it was frustrating because I couldn't see what we were communicating over. Okay, do we have the recipe when we're trying to communicate over to, you know, your line cook? Whenever you're trying to explain something, do you have the wall build out? You know, any of those different things that you want to have there. Do you have the P&L? Do you have the computer up? All those different things is, then you have visuals for them. So, and then, you know, just being able to make sure that you give that builder as much information as you possibly can so they can execute the prototype, which is whatever that engineer is trying to communicate over. And then hopefully, they're not asking a whole lot of questions to the feedbacker for yes or no's, because that means the guest is happy. Okay? All right. Anybody have any questions before we disperse? Okay. Those of you that completed, don't forget to give me the $100 bribe that we talked about earlier. But I really appreciate this. It was a lot of fun, and it was actually an idea that came from one of our operators that had gone through this and said, you know what? We have a lot of new individuals in our organization, and we thought it would be a good refresher for all of us just to kind of get back on the same page. We just did this with the home office probably about a month ago, but it was a good opportunity to kind of intermingle amongst each other, and so now we all have a better idea of, you know, some communication. So whenever you're talking to Patty, you know, at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, she is engineering what she needs to get out of you, and she's trying to pass that information on to where then you can communicate it onto your management team. So you got to kind of think of it in those different roles instead of like her being the accounting police, or what you call yourself? The accounting snitch. All right, so lunch is at 12:15 upstairs. It is buffet style, and it is now 11:58. That gives you guys about 15 minutes to use the restroom, do whatever you need to do, but then they'll have everything served up there. All the Legos and everything, if you could make sure everything is back in the bags, Ziploc bags, Kara, because I know you had some loose. Okay. And then Kelly's getting them all together. And then we're gonna have to do a Lego sweep of all the floors for pieces that are probably down there at some point. But with that, thank you.